Flooding, that's big. Out west, they have droughts, the opposite of flooding. What was it? I can't remember the country that it's been on the news with mudslides. They received 3 months worth of rain in 3 hours. And it just, it's out of the world. One thing that you and I know, I alluded to it in the sermon this morning, and it's here, is this world is falling apart. If you're a gambling person and you want to make a bet on the fact that the world is going to come to an end. There'll be no one around to pay you for winning except Jesus Christ, but that's the only gamble. And it's not even betting. That's a sure thing. That's a sure thing. Jesus is coming. So, and when we think of disaster relief, even though, for example, where I was heading here in Gulf States conferences, it really is only a 3 month out of the year thing. You know what I'm saying? Hurricane season is May through November 1, I think, or maybe November 30, but it's May through November. And we may get a few storms, but they don't all hit here. Praise the Lord. The last one that majorly hit us, was the one that hit Panama City. And that wiped out Port St. Lucie. We had a group meeting there from the Panama City Church. It's about an hour away, right on the timeline of the Apalachicola River. It wiped that city out. Who was the pastor there, dear? Not of that church that they got wiped out in that. Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell pastored in this conference for several years before he retired due to medical, and they were living down in Port St. Lucie. I don't know that they ever found their trailer. It's just gone. And a car was destroyed. I mean, it just looked like a bomb went through there. Nothing left. But that's 3 or 4 months when it hits for us. For Panama City, they're still rebuilding. It's been 2 years. That's local. But you got to get them back on their feet. You have to do that help. And you're aware that we have a couple trailers now. In fact, one of them hasn't even been inaugurated yet. We have the shower laundry trailer. Has 2 showers, 2 toilets, 2 sinks. And then on the other end of it, it has 2 washers and 2 dryers. Amazingly enough, the 2 washers and 2 dryers, 2 washers, 2 dryers, so 2 sets cost $8,000. They're the most expensive and the best on the planet. And what the reason we went that direction too is if there's a problem with them, they're the only ones where they can be repaired in the trailer. Every other, we have to pull them out of the trailer and get them down onto the ground. And I'll tell you, I'm getting older all the time, and dismantling trailers is not my thing. I want to come in and work on it, but I don't think it's your thing either. And so that trailer goes places. Now, the beauty of that trailer is it can go to disasters. But do you know that trailer is more used during non-disaster times? So all summer long, that trailer will be in use, going to churches that have the Megabook program. 15, 18, 20, 22 kids. What is it? Grades 11 through college. And they're earning scholarships. And they come, they sleep on the floor of your church, and then they go out to the community knocking on doors. They did that in Auburn. Yes. And so if your church isn't outfitted with showers, then we hope you have a Planet Fitness nearby. And then for $10 a kid, we can get them a month membership at Planet Fitness that has showers and they can utilize all the equipment. But a lot of churches don't have a Planet Fitness in their district. So we can pull that trailer up here, connect it. And now these evangelistic students that are getting Bible studies and all these are now going to some of our smallest churches that they've never been able to go to before because they don't have what they need. The other little trailer you can pull behind a good-sized car. Not a little teeny car, but it's a 5x8 enclosed trailer, and it's for yards, home and yards. It's got tarps, shovels, rakes, lawn equipment. The only thing it doesn't have in it, is going to be chainsaws. So following after a disaster, if you have a chainsaw, you can bring your chainsaw, but nobody else should use your chainsaw. And Adventist risk management really doesn't like to insure chainsaws for people that don't know how to operate them. That's and that's the same with anybody, Geico, what's the other, State Farm. Nobody wants to insure something. Yeah, you don't know how to drive a car? We'll sell you car insurance. No, they don't like that. But that's where Adventist Community Services, they see disaster response as first and foremost. And it really isn't. The majority of Adventist Community Services is done in between disasters. God called us to a ministry of sharing his love to the world around us. What better way to do that than service? I'm sure your pastor and Sabbath school teachers have said to you over and over and over and over again that statement from Ellen White that says Jesus mingled with them, men and women, as one who desired their own good. He met their needs, and then he bid them, follow me. Welcome to the mission statement of Adventist Community Services. It's the same thing. And the difference is it's a little more challenging during the non-disaster to kind of figure out what those needs are. It's easy when you walk to someone's house and there's a tree laying in their living room to find out what their immediate need is. Or when their electricity's gone out and they have a loved one that needs an oxygen machine or something. Very simple to know this is what's needed. By the way, on that yard trailer, there's a couple of generators. The shower laundry trailer, it's built into it so that thing can run without being connected to any electric. It can be out in the middle of nowhere. It even has an 8-inch, there's a 450 water gallon tank in it. Can't be moved with water in that tank very far, very fast. But we've put an 8-inch cap on that tank so that the fire department can send a truck and fill that 450 gallon tank in about 3 minutes. And then they can leave. And then the showers, when you turn on the shower, nothing comes out. You grab the chain and pull the chain. Now water comes out. You let go of the chain, you soap up. We got to make 450 gallons go a ways, where most of us realize, oh, you just pull that chain down, tie the thing down, stand there, and person number 2 gets a dry shower. And that doesn't work. But God called us to a ministry for him. So I'm speaking to the choir because I know you guys are all a part of that, and which is a good thing. What does Adventist Community Services, what is it called when we leave the United States and we go into the world with the same ministry? It changes names. What name does it change to? ADRA, Adventist Development and Relief Agency. And of course, we are registered with the federal government and with the governments around the world as an NGO, which is a, pardon me? Non-governmental organization, correct. And we have several, trying to think, Jamaica, Haiti. These are some countries, and there's others that are even further away. Maybe like Spain, maybe, that has a vice president or has a premier or a prime minister that's a Seventh-day Adventist. And now all of a sudden, when remember when that storm came through and came across those islands and then hit Biloxi and then Pensacola in there? That was a big storm. I don't remember the name of it. You'd think I'd remember the name. I don't remember. It's been a year and a half or so. I know because that storm came up through Biloxi, came up, skirted our academy, came up through Hattiesburg rather, and to the east of Hattiesburg, came across the state and took my roof off in Montgomery. Took my shingles. So a total loss of roof. Lost enough shingles. It's crazy. I mean, these storms are powerful, powerful. The last time, maybe some of you, especially from here, when you go to Camp Alamisco, you go up. Oh, no, you don't. I forget about that. You guys go through Auburn. But if you come down to exit 32, which is Highway 49, and you turn and go up, my wife and I could tell a tornado had been through there since Christmas. All the trees were facing a direction trees don't normally face. And sure enough, we saw on TV that 2 days earlier, and we talked about it at Sabbath school training, that just within the last 48 hours, a storm went through. And on Thursday, Camp Alamisco had no electricity. But by Friday, it was repaired, and we ran the seminar and the weekend just perfectly fine. Well, that tornado hit within 20 miles of the Key, multiple places. But there was no real property damage. It's out in the middle of nowhere in places. But
the entrance to Camp Alamisco, about halfway down the road was the entrance to the camp. Where a small tornado came through there.
Yes.
Is that the one you're talking about?
No, actually, this one is closer to Highway 85. Yeah, probably 20 miles, maybe 15 to 18 miles south from there. Big swath. I mean, we probably drove for, what are we driving, 45, 50 miles an hour, and drove for 3 or 4 minutes witnessing it out the window. It's like, wow, this just wasn't a stiff breeze. This was something. And so let me end with the disaster part of this by saying that Gulf States Conference has a mission. And is this being streamed? It is? Okay, then I need to stay by the microphone so they can hear. So you know me, I'm a pacer. That we used to be in warehousing. You've heard that Seventh-day Adventists do warehousing. Well, we're fortunate enough to have South Central Conference that mirrors our conference. South Central covers 100% of Gulf states and Kentucky, Tennessee. So they take up 4 states where we take up 2 in the Panhandle. And they're just so much bigger than we are that we had divided years ago. Someone divided our conference up into 6 pieces. They got 3, we got 3, and then they'd wait for us. We're a small conference in comparison. And so last year and a half ago, we turned over all of our warehousing to the South Central Conference. How many here have been trained in how to do warehousing? We used to remember Ray Ellsbury would go around and you teach, and you'd get that badge good for 2 or 3 years. And Pastor Ellsbury passed away during COVID. And so I do this because, he did what he did. He did it excellently. He did it well. But as I went around as the new ACS director, I started asking, so how many people in churches, how many have you been trained? And it didn't matter how many raised their hand within a church. It was always a minority. It was always less than 5% of the church. And then I'd say, okay, everybody else, your hands are already down. Those of you who have your hands raised, keep them raised. Now, out of everybody who's trained, your hands are raised. How many of you have actually assisted in a warehouse? Well, let me tell you, conference-wide, I found 2 people. And it was like, we've got to do something different. We can be trained 22 years, 19 of those 22 years, I've been certified to help in warehousing. I've never been in a warehouse as a volunteer. Florida has changed how it's done. Alabama's working to change. Georgia's changing. Right now, if a hurricane hits Panama City like it did, where do you put the warehouse? You know where Florida puts it? Tampa. Because there's going to be 50,000 semi-trucks coming in with stuff that's got to be sorted, and it doesn't need to come into a disaster zone, literally. So when I was in Fort Walton Beach and Hurricane Ivan had come through, took off our steeple, we became a Red Cross shelter. 100 people from the community lived in our church for a week. We served them breakfast, lunch, and supper. And that was because of relationships I had made before the disaster. Long before the disaster. And anyway, by 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I would call a number that was in my county, Emergency Operations Center. I'd tell them, I need a pallet of water. I need this. And they'd send out a list. So I'm looking at the list of what they have. And I need this, I need this, I need this. By 6 o'clock the next morning, there was a semi or 2 in our parking lot delivering it. So they didn't need to be in I got it when I needed it. And then they got their trucks and they got out of there so that they weren't taking up roads. They weren't taking up buildings. One of the things we did, I told you this morning, I worked with the homeless. Did you know that you have the homeless who live outdoors, but you also have the working poor? The working poor are the next level up. They earn enough money to stay in a dirt cheap motel by the week, but not enough money to save to get a down payment to get a house. They don't qualify for a loan. They're right in between there. A disaster strikes, they only have paid for their room for a week. So when Gulf Power, Alabama Power, Kentucky Power, or, Cincinnati Light and Power, they send people down, they call the motel and they say, hey, do you have any room? Well, starting Sunday, we do. So then they book it. And then immediately, 1 week later, all the working poor are now homeless because all the helpers are now staying in all the motel rooms. I was scheduled to go preach at Panama City 3, 4, 5 months after the hurricane went through. I had a motel reservation, and 3 days prior to that, they called up and they said, no, we're still needing it for this, and we've canceled your room. And I knew exactly why. The government pays top dollar for the room, where I try and pay the cheap price for the room. But we decided in Gulf States Conference, the short answer is, we're going to call the pastor of the church or district where the disasters happen, regardless of the disaster. Pastor Dwayne, do you have any church members that have been negatively affected by this? Is everybody okay? Yes, Pastor. We've talked to people, but yeah, we've got a couple of people that have lost portions of their roof. We have some people that have trees down in their yards, and there's people that have some holes, and all this. And it'd be like, do you want some help? Man, Pastor, that'd be great. It's like, okay, we'll be down there. I'm going to start getting names of volunteers. We have a database where we collect. I'm not going to ask any of you to help me. You're trying to put your lives back together here. So we're going to bring in 4 to 6 people with that home trailer. And then depending on what it is, we have a memorandum of understanding with an organization, Adventist organization in Chattanooga called To Serve. They usually bring about 70 to 100 academy kids for labor, and then Gulf States Conference reimburses receipts for food. And to have them down here for 2 or 3 weeks costs the conference $2,200. I mean, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing for the work that they do. And we will bring our shower laundry trailer. That shower laundry, think about it, 2 showers. The sink, toilet, and shower are in one room, and there's 2 of those rooms, and then 2 washers and dryers. If I brought that to your subdivision, I would create more of a mess than it would be a help. Most subdivisions have 100 houses, 200 houses, 400 houses. It can't do it. But we can bring it so that the volunteers that are coming to help have fresh clothes. They can keep, and we just keep the volunteers working. And then what we'll do is, with that other trailer, with other help, and maybe some of those academy kids, is Pastor, tell us, give us an address of the person that's having the hardest time, the worst. And what we'll do is we'll bring those 4 to 8 people to that person's house with our trailer. The pastor will meet us there, because when you knock on the door and you open the door, you may not know who I am. You won't know who some of these people are coming, but you should know who your pastor is. And the pastor be there, hey, so-and-so, and da-da-da-da-da, have a word of prayer together. The pastor's got things he's got to go do. And then we're going to help them at their home right there. And then we're going to help the neighbors that are around them, and then go to house number 2. The neighbors will never remember who we are, but they'll never forget who that Adventist is that lives there. They'll never forget. And it's about touching lives. It's about helping people and being there. And that is true community service. And so that trailer should be outfitted here. Constituency kind of pushed things, and COVID has kind of pushed things, but that trailer should be available, the smaller trailer for the home and yard. We already have requests of women's ministry wants to use it, men's ministries, and another church wants to use it, Pathfinders, Adventures. What they want to do is they want to call, like the city of Phoenix City down here, and say, hey, you've got people who are going to be fined because their yards haven't been mowed and all this, but maybe they're invalid, maybe they're older, maybe they're, and maybe it's your neighbor. So on a Sunday, you pull this trailer, go take care of 4, 5, 6 lawns with your kids, do all that, park the trailer, and you did a great thing, and then restock the trailer a little bit. The big stuff, rakes, all that is there. But, like we started out with some trash bags in there, use some trash bags, throw them in there. And we don't charge for the use of the trailer. We just keep it going so that it's ready for the next person. I think there's even going to be a lawnmower in it. So they pull lawnmower. People bring their own tools, but there could be some basics. So that is a cool thing to know that is tools in your conference. There are 4 aspects to Adventist community services: sharing, connecting, ministering, and discipling. And those, do these not sound familiar? and that's why it's like, so we have one church in Gulf States Conference who has redesigned their church ministries list. We would call it the nominating committee list, so that Adventist Community Services is underneath the church board. It's a thin little box, but Adventist Community Services now gets to work with all of the departments to help them. A lot of people don't know. Well, I learned this. This is what a cynical pastor told me. He says, make your church board agendas as short as possible because people don't care. And I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, the Pathfinder director's there to present and get the Pathfinder schedule. They don't have anything invested in adventurers or women's ministries or men ministry. They're there representing this department, and that's exactly what we want. And then this ministry, they're not tied together. Adventist Community Services can tie them together so that they are together. Prison ministries, women's ministries, Pathfinders, adventurers. What is the end goal of every one of them? To take the name of Jesus to the world. It's the same mission as the whole church has, sharing the love of Jesus. And of course, by working side by side with these folks that have it, we're building relationships. If, somebody wrote recently, it's one of those memes, we have a theology by memes, the pictures with words on them now on Facebook and other places. And so our theology becomes snippet theology. And some of that sometimes can be good for bringing your mind to something, but it's never complete. The Reader's Digest version of things leaves a lot out. We need the bigger picture, but sometimes we get them interested. Anyway, the little snippet on this thing just simply was pointing out the fact that that certain things don't matter in life. And it was like, I don't know about you, I've gotten to the age where I think everything matters. Even the amount of time I spend with people who think it doesn't matter because they're wasting the time. I don't have time for that. Or this isn't going toward my vision or my mission. And I have a goal, you have a goal, and the church has a goal. And if Pathfinders isn't moving towards saving the kids in Pathfinders, it would almost be better to dismantle Pathfinders than have a program that's not leading kids to Jesus. And then, of course, take Pathfinders out and put every other ministry in there. But we've got to engage people, and we've got to engage their hearts. We've got to love them. Then the discipleship model, you can't bring people into the first thing when you knock on someone's door and they open the door. Can you imagine? Hi, my name is Martin Fincher. Your name is? My name is. Okay. Well, do you have a church home? Yes, I go over here to the Methodist church. Oh, you worship on Sunday? Yes. You're going to hell for worshiping on Sunday, right? You see what I'm saying? We're not winning friends. We're not influencing people. We may, and I don't even think we're being accurate. I don't even think we're being right. But that's where some people think it's more important to be right than it is to be loving. And it's like, even just, I work for you. And, policies and the legal part of the conference run through me. And one of the things that we even dealt with our last executive committee is we were going to vote to go out of policy on an issue, intentionally go out of policy. And for that, we need the executive committee's approval. And the executive committee is brand new. This was their second meeting since the constituency. And they're like, well, is this normal? And it's like, well, actually it is. But you have to make up your mind. You're not the last committee. We don't expect you to be. But here's where our problem lies. When policy comes head to head with employees, we always want to err on the side of the employee. People over policies. And they said, well, then you can count us in on this. And it's like, when we get audited, we're going to take a hit. But the bottom line is, I know I will sleep at night knowing that I did the Lord good. I think that the executive committee will sleep well, and I think you'll sleep well, knowing that, it'd be people over policy. That doesn't mean policy doesn't matter. It just simply means if it comes head to head, we're going to side with love and then follow up with, and by the way, the out of policy wasn't that far out of policy. It's not like it's, well, okay, we're going to side with you and grace never ends. No, grace ends. Can't go on forever. So anyway, did you know that the Dorcas Society was the first part of Adventist Community Services, formed in 1879? Figure out how many years ago that was. Anybody here back there when they? This one's a little better. In 1953, the General Conference renamed and called it Health and Welfare Services. Well, that's not a real great name, but it probably was at that point in time. And then in 1970, and most of us were around in the 70s, maybe not you, Pastor, I'm not sure. The name was shortened to simply Adventist Community Services. Adventist because we ring a bell like no other. Community because that's what it's about inside the church and out. And it's all about service. It just doesn't get any better than that. 2005, Adventist Community Services International was restarted. That was something that happened years ago, but they partnered with that Tell It to the World. You may not even heard that initiative to be able to we can't have too many service ministries in our church. And that's why I say literally everyone. I talked to a pastor just this week who 50% of his school, in fact, it's actually close to 60% of his church school is non-Adventist. And I'm not saying that they're not baptized, because you don't get baptized till around third grade, second, third, fourth grade in there. That's not what we're talking about. If the child is in an Adventist home, I'm counting them as Adventist. We're talking about there are nearly 60% of some of our church schools where they're coming in from the community. That's evangelism. That's a way to share and show the love, and they bring the parents in and they have the kids do things on church, and these parents are right there. So here is 7 families of ministries that fall under Adventist Community Services that are very specific: disaster response, emotional and spiritual care, community development and urban ministry, older adult ministry, Hope for Humanity, that's the old in-gathering program that's been kind of revamped, young adult services corps, and tutoring mentoring programs. And I'll tell you, one of our churches, Dothan, Seventh-day Adventist, actually has a huge tutoring program going on in their public school. The lady that does that, Rosalind, sits on the executive committee this time. So she's only, in fact, she's been to one of the 2 meetings. And she is a professional and sits on one of the Governor Kay Ivey's committees. And so she called me up, and boy, I wish, this has been 3 years ago. She said the governor said at this committee, they have $2.5 million laying around that people need to use. And I'm kind of like, sign me up for like 2.25. It's, we'll find a way. But it was a very specific thing that the churches couldn't qualify for it in that regards. Otherwise, we would definitely try. But we have people that are there on those levels to be able to help, because, if there's money that can help you do your community services, I think I let our community be involved. I want them to think that they're a part of our ministries. That's the first step through the door. Then all they're lacking is baptism. Work them in. So that's the mission and thing. So what I want to do, just as we're coming to an end here, we have a track record of following disasters. Adventist Church has a record. I don't even have to talk about that at all. We've seen that. We know they're there. We've seen it there. The rest of the time, the rest of the year, what is it that the Adventist Church can do to serve their community? And the problem is that the list is so extensive that we become blind to the list and can't think of anything. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you is to the only way to say it is using Mark Finley's Making Friends for God. He has this program that years ago. Our community knows what its problems are. How did I know what the sheriff's office needed? I sat on the homeless committee at the very beginning. I didn't even speak. I wasn't a member. I was a pastor. Their meetings are open. I was willing to sit there. Catholic Charities sat at the table, and they were like, we have $1.7 million in our account to spend on such and such. That's wonderful. I look at them, 1.7 million. My church gives me $150 a month. That's my budget. And it's like, I'm not even covering their advertising in a year for what they advertise in a month. Can't commit. But then I listened to these other organizations, United Way, the local police, the local electric company, the water utility, the who's who of the community are all sitting at this table. And I had to leave. It was my first meeting. And I leaned over to the person that had invited me. And I asked them, I said, am I catching this correctly? We've been talking now for 20 minutes. I've been listening. That they're now discussing the greatest problem to all these organizations in Fort Walton Beach. And the guy says, yeah, this is it. Do you know what it was? There was no place for the homeless to take showers. That was the earth-shattering. Salvation Army doesn't have a shower in their building. United Way does not have a shower in their building. And even if they did, they're only open from 8 to 5, and they're not open on weekends and all these things. And I listened and they went and they said, well, we're going to table this. We'll bring it up next month at the meeting and do all this. Well, I went back to my church board and I said, hey, I'm the new pastor here, been here a while. I've probably been here 18 months or so. And I said, I noticed just outside my office door, you have the pastor's restroom. They said, yes, that was built for the pastor. I said, I know. It's got a beautiful sink, beautiful mirror, wonderful toilet, and a shower. They said, yep, all of it's there. And I said, can I ask a question? They said, yep. I said, what in the world do you think the pastor's going to do that he needs to shower at the church? And they said, well, we weren't sure if he wanted to shower after a baptism. And I'm like, no, it's clean water. We're good. None of that. And I said, hey, and I told them the story I just told you. And they voted and they said, well, we're here at prayer meeting. We're here on this night. We're here Sunday morning at the breakfast program. Go ahead and offer our shower. So at the next meeting, they're talking back about the thing. And I raised my hand and one of the people had known me and said, Pastor Fancher, is it? I said, yeah. Yeah, tell us what church again. I told them what church, and it was like, they were the bulldogs, and I was the little field mouse. Nobody. And I just said, My church has a shower. Your church has a shower? Yeah. And then I told them the story. I said, yeah, I have no clue what they thought I was going to do as their pastor, that I'd need a shower. If they did, they're sorely misunderstood. I'm not in construction. I'm not in, that is not my gift. And I said, so I talked to them, and the church is willing to share my shower. And they said, what times? And I told the time, they're like, those are perfect times. Everybody's closed, but that's when, because some of the homeless get day jobs with the day labor. So they're not even there during the day. And so that's how it started, little simple things. But I didn't know. If you'd have asked me before that and I had any money, I would have wagered all of it. I wouldn't even have thought the word shower. Would never even cross my mind that was the holdup. Once we provided that shower, they found out, they said, well, why are you doing it on Sunday morning? You're Seventh-day Adventists. They know. And I said, we do a Sunday morning breakfast. You do? After that meeting, an organization by the name of Destin Harvest. You've heard of Destin. Destin Harvest is an organization, nonprofit there, that goes and picks up food that's about to expire from the big grocery stores. So that's why when you get there, this bread is best bought before. It's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 days before the day you're there. They're not going to let it, I better buy this today. No one's going to buy it. So they pull it every day. He came up and he said, hey, you're doing a breakfast, for free. I can provide food. That'd be great. And he says, well, what else? And later on, I'm speeding a story that took a few years to make, but another organization bought us $15,000 worth of commercial refrigerators and freezers. Another organization, who was it? I'm pointing to you like you would know, but you would. They come in and inspect and tell you, nope, sorry, you can't do that. And they grade you. At a restaurant, you go in and see the 97, 98. Okay, those people came to our church. And they walked in and they said, well, no, you only have a two-sided sink. You need a third side. And your food isn't being sitting by warming. It needs to be under warming lights. It needs to be all this. We're closing you down. Okay. So I called somebody. Somebody called somebody. Somebody called somebody. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the state of Florida called and scheduled a tour. He came from Tallahassee, walked through the church with his delegation of people and all this, and he looked and he says, you're not doing this for money. No, sir. You're doing this to help the community. Yes, sir. He said, you're doing a good job. Keep it up. And by the way, other bigwigs from around that table came to there. I didn't say hardly a word. They kept saying how important the Seventh-day Adventist Church was to their ministries and to their organizations. 2 days later, we got a letter from that inspector's office saying, we're done. Continue to do what God's called you to do and have a great life. It was barred, just little things. God's in control. God's in control. And so find out, call the local police station. It's better even yet, go into the local police station. What do you need? What does the community need? What do you see? I had a church when I was pastoring, had a church here in Gulf States that called me and said, hey, come teach us how to do homeless ministry. And I said, okay, well, I'd be happy to do that. How many homeless do you have around there? Well, none. Well, do you know where they are? No. Well, it's not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. It's not how it works. You've got to find out what they need. Nobody builds a lighthouse in the desert that has half a brain, right? You've got to have a ministry that meets the needs, and no two communities are the same. And so you can go to United Way. You can go probably Columbus. The same problems Columbus is having are the same problems Phoenix City will have, because you are connected with them in that way. And you'll find that all of a sudden, when you come in and you just say little things, we have a church that they make these little Ziploc bags, and they put in a little shampoo, comb, toothbrush, toothpaste, and a $5 McDonald's or Taco Bell certificate or two that they can scan for food in there. And then they take those down to the local police department, and they give them out to their officers or deputies to give out to the homeless that they see. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call. Hey, pastor, yeah, this is the sheriff's assistant over here. Hey, we wanted to thank you for those. We're running low on those. Is your child? We'd love to. We would love to. When are you guys having shift change? We want to bring some pizza to the guys and gals at work. Is that okay? Oh, I may not eat the pizza, but I know they do. And I'm meeting them where they're at, not where I'm at. And just finding out this church is a launching pad. You come here to be refueled and refreshed, but we go out there to serve. And I will just end by saying we also serve in this building, and we should. Because one of the things that I have noticed, well, I know this is being streamed, so I can keep this generic. I spoke with a lady this week on the phone, and she happened to be hitting an area that we're discussing at the conference office, the ministerial. That's Elder Denise, Josh Murillo, our ministerial director, and myself, that we're looking at is, why is it that we're friendlier to others than we are to our own? I've seen it. I see it all too often. And here's the catch. It's almost like, and what I'm trying to do, by the way, I'm trying to be very good here. I'm trying to see the glass half full and not empty. But when you point out one half of the glass, you're pointing out the other. And that is this. So we had a lady that went to a pastor in Gulf States Conference and said, I lost my husband to COVID. I have children, 2 children. I'm a young widower. And, I need help. And the response from the church was, we will pray for you. Well, that's wonderful. But like the sermon today, there's a spiritual and a physical side. Spiritually, you're going to pray. Physically, what you going to do? Do you know what she's looking for? She's looking for a grief recovery to join. Why? She went to her father's church, who's a Baptist. And she walked into that church, and they immediately came over to her and said, oh, you lost your husband. That is horrible. We have a grief program right here. Well, she went to the grief program, and every time she goes to the grief program centered around, just remember, your husband's in heaven, and he's watching everything you're doing, which is not a message that's, and that stands out as not being true. And she says, why is it that the Baptists are kinder than the Adventists? And I said, you're right, sister. You're right. I get you. I said, because you meet people where they're at. You're right. But not totally. And I said, what I'm about to say is not an excuse. It's a problem that we don't see with our blinders on. So we've got to remove the blinders. Here's the catch. When she went to her father's church, who were the Baptists ministering to? They were ministering to a non-member. That's their focus too. The father's been talking about it. She's the outsider, so they make the outsider feel like an insider. Meanwhile, the insider is still trying to feel like an insider. They're inside, still feeling like they're outside. And it's like, this is a challenge in many churches and in the world church, because we're to seek and save the lost. We've got to remember, many of the lost are in the boat. There, but for the grace of God, go I, But Adventist Community Services, is not the magic bullet, but it is a huge piece of the pie, because Adventist Community Services is where they're to serve, inside, outside, Baptist, Presbyterian, homeless, wealthy. It doesn't matter. We don't go around, that's $1 million home over there. They must have insurance. We're not helping them. We don't do that. We help people who are hurting. It doesn't make a difference. Why? Because we're not looking for insurance money. We're not even looking for accolades of that you did it. We're simply the hands and feet of Jesus. That's what it is. Any questions? Anything you're looking at? I know brainstorming sessions are fantastic. I would only encourage you that you build. And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking both spiritually and ministry-wise. that when you have a program, you have a ministry. After a little while and you've got it going well, now it's time to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to make it better or make it bigger by extending. When we left Fort Walton Beach on Sunday mornings in our church, we had about 15 to 18 people from our community. Probably a third of them were our members, 2/3 of them, they came from the Air Force Base, they came from other agencies to be a part of helping, because we usually served about 300 meals every Sunday morning. We had our Dorcas room that was operated by one of our church members, and then she had volunteers that came to help her. We had a lady that came in from, I don't remember what it is, like Sports Clips or hair cutters or a beauty salon, and they put a chair in the bathrooms, and then she would cut their hair for free. They were getting the same haircut that you and I pay for. They were getting it free and helping them. Then they could get the clothes down there. The workforce was there signing them up. We had a lady who's a realtor. She's still a friend of our church there very much. She helps people sign up for driver's licenses. She helps them get Social Security because they've lost their card. They're homeless. It's gone. So now they don't know. We had someone from the military there because many of the homeless are military. They could look up their DD something number. There's another letter there, DD8, and put that in there and realize that, you haven't got a raise in 8 years. We need to update this information. Now they're getting more money. At one point, we were even having the Department of Transportation bring their motorhome into our parking lot, issuing driver's licenses and or state IDs, not driver's licenses, state IDs to the homeless, because you have to have an ID, and all the states have made it. When was the last time you got a driver's license? Oh my goodness. You have to prove that. You almost have to bring your mother. And then they're going to ask your mother, are you sure I was there when they were born? You have to prove residence. Homeless have none of that. You need an electric bill or a rent bill. They don't have any of that. So they can't get the access. And so they would work with us and provide it right there. And we would pay the fee. And they discount. It's like $8 an ID. And you can't get that when you go down there, $25, $30. But it covered some of their costs. But again, we didn't know about any of it. We started a ministry, and then we simply just kept asking the Lord and asking our community, what's next? What else is the need? And there were many needs that they brought across the path that we couldn't do. Oh, what we need to do is build a shelter. You got $1 million? I wish. No, I wish. But I'll tell you what, I'll help you. Can't pay for it, but we'll man it. And so now they have a shelter there. The churches don't have to house them at night. But we have people from our church that go up and take their turn and stay at the shelter overnight and man it, because that's just how it's operating until they can get a budget to pay somebody. How do we share and show Jesus better and better and better? So I know God's going to continue to bless you as we make serving our community a priority, because everybody who walks through the door is a part of our community, including ourselves. So, anything else, Pastor? You're good? Perfect. Are we more? Should I have prayer? What do you want me to do? Perfect. Let's bow our heads as we pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity we've had to be here with the Phoenix City Church family. Father, we know that the lighthouse here shines bright. But Father, what we simply pray for all around Gulf States Conference and our Union Division and our World Church is, Father, make us more on fire for you. Make us radiate the love of Jesus so that when people see us, they will want to ask, what you have, we want. And we can simply say, it's Jesus and Jesus alone. And he wants you more than we. So, Father, guide and direct each one of us until you come to take us home. Thank you for keeping us faithful, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I've enjoyed being here and always. And I love the talking back, especially during church. Like, alive.